The goal of this video is to tie climate and plastic production together with plastic toxicity. The focus here is on plastic material and its detrimental effects on human physiology. From there, you can draw your own conclusions. Climate issues and environmental toxic loads, especially plastics and plastic production, are connected. Let's examine plastics and plastic production and their effects on a global scale. With this knowledge, we can make necessary changes using our dollars and how and where we spend to create a positive change. It was clear to many 2 decades ago that the concept of recycling plastic material would ultimately show its fallibility. The answer was to produce a product for the public that would support various health insufficiencies and help solve the plastic problem. There's a way out of this. Solving the plastic dilemma is relatively easy. Making the effort to support a healthy lifestyle and reduce healthcare costs is more difficult for many. Let's start with plastic recycling, and we will tie it into the climate issue. Here are some of the facts. In an article on February 26, 2024 called 50 Years of Fraud, Big Oil, Plastics Industry Lied About Recycling, Documents Revealed by Dana Drugmand. In her article, Revelations from Internal Documents on the Plastics Industry and the Global Waste These Companies Contribute were revealed. Here is a quote. Despite their long-standing knowledge that recycling plastic is neither technically nor economically viable, petrochemical companies independently and through their industry trade associations and front groups have engaged in fraudulent marketing and public education campaigns designed to mislead the public about the viability of plastic recycling, asserts the new report, released by the Center for Climate Integrity, CCI, on Feb. 15. Here is another quote by CCI Center for Climate Integrity by President Richard Wiles. This evidence shows that many of the same fossil fuel companies that knew and lied for decades about how their products cause climate change have also known and lied to the public about plastic recycling. The Center for International Environmental Law notes that 99% of plastics are derived from fossil fuels, and many large oil and gas companies like Exxon, Mobil, Shell and Occidental Petroleum have chemical divisions that produce plastics and plastic constituents that have yet to be discovered. Organization New Lead mentions that life cycle greenhouse gas emissions associated with single-use plastic amounted to roughly 450 million metric tons of CO2, equivalent in 2021, comparable to the total emissions of the United Kingdom. The statements from the Stanford Research Institute prepared for the Society of the Plastics Industry Inc. in New York and the Society of Plastics Engineers in Connecticut mention the principal causes of the degradation of plastic materials are sunlight, temperature, moisture, chemical constituents of the air, and microorganisms. Ultraviolet sunlight and oxygen are needed for degradation to occur. Unfortunately, plastics are not necessarily exposed to sunlight. Microorganisms' availability underground is too low to be effective. It further states municipal sources of plastic waste. This means that wherever you live, throughout the country and globally, every municipality contributes to the most significant amount of plastics that have to be disposed of. Further, according to this data, there are no effective market mechanisms for trade in contaminated mixed plastics. What does this mean for the average consumer? Depending upon the recycling numbers on the bottom of the bottles, some can be recycled, some not. Mixing different types of plastics by the homeowner, this data states that sorting by the homeowner over any sufficiently practical period is infeasible. Go to the paper from the Fraud of Plastic Recycling documentary. Evidence 13 Center for Climate Integrity. A recent article on March 4, 2024 called Worried About Microplastics in Your Water by Jessica Hullinger. Researchers detected microplastics in human blood. Tests of 62 human placentas found microplastics in every sample. It is suggested that boiling your water, then filtering it, will eliminate microplastics from water. Not so fast. Is the water purchased outside the home safe to drink, primarily if contained in plastic bottles? Has that water been filtered? No one knows because testing of water sold in retail stores and restaurants still needs to be done. Polystyrene was also found to be an issue from styrofoam. Polyethylene was the most commonly used product for plastic products, and polypropylene was the second most used element in this test. Do we need to go any further? This doesn't even touch upon the toxicity of BPA, bisphenol A from plastics, especially drinking out of plastic bottles, although heating food in plastic containers is worse. BPA has been found in over 90% of American urine samples. Only a small percentage of plastic is recyclable, but we can make a change instantly at this moment in time. It will take parents and future generations to make the change. Let's touch on some basic information about the effect of plastic products on our hormonal system. Some basic studies on children. Typical breast development in 11-year-olds a generation ago is now occurring in more than 7-year-olds and rarely even in 3-year-olds. Scientists fear this may increase their risk for cancer and other illnesses later on in life. A 2012 study showed boys may be starting early puberty by as much as 6 months to 2 years. Similar conclusions are appearing in Europe as well as the US. Obesity seems to be a significant factor. Rates of obesity have more than doubled in children over the past 30 years. Family stress and chemical exposure in the environment may also play a role. Recent US data from 2013, 23% of African American girls, 15% of Hispanic girls, and 10% of Caucasian girls have started to develop breasts at age 7. Gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH, activates the pituitary gland to stimulate estrogen release and start this puberty cycle. Fat cells also contain GnRH, and obesity levels can trigger the same response. Lisa Axgleder and colleagues at Riggs Hospital in Copenhagen followed 2,000 girls and found that heavier girls did enter puberty earlier. The normal weight girls trend also existed, so there was something else besides obesity that affected this trend. Could estrogen mimics, called xenoestrogens and xenobiotics, from plastics and other chemical products, produce hormonal changes in children at an earlier age? More research is forthcoming. A 2009 study published in Pediatrics concluded that, according to body mass index testing, between 1991 and 2006, a higher body mass index could not account for this earlier breast development. Something else is causing these early pubescent changes. Researchers concluded that endocrine disruptors such as pesticides, polychlorinated biphenyls, and bisphenol A mimic the effects of estrogen in the body and could cause earlier breast growth. We also know that these chemical compounds are cancer-causing compounds. Casey C. Clark, CFA President and Chief Investment Officer of Rockefeller Asset Management, in the second edition of the Plastic Waste Makers Index, the Minderoo Foundation, alongside research partners, highlights the critical linkages between plastics and net zero carbon emission goals. It also explains the environmental risks that traditional financial analysis and reporting methods often overlook. It has been known that the myths of recycling plastic material have yet to evolve to make much of a difference. This is especially true with beverage companies that contribute to obesity and diabetes, especially among young people utilizing high sugar formulas along with their hyper-elevated cost. No or no net sugar advertisements are not much better since they are produced in plastic bottles and contain sugar substitutes, which are highly suspect in studies showing their carcinogenicity. For more information on products categorized as energy-dense and nutrient-poor foods and beverages, or EDNP, which are commonly referred to as junk food, go to our video Sports Advertising of Junk Food is Killing Our Youth. Sports advertising of junk food is killing our youth. 7 easy ways to protect your children. So multiple factors affect the health of families, both young and old. High sugary products packaged in plastic materials cause toxicity on many levels, including hormonal changes. The production of these products affects the climate because of the fuels needed to produce the packaging for these products. The artificial sugar substitutes are not much better. Simply put, the artificial sweeteners in many beverages sold to children in plastic containers may be a double hit that detrimentally affects our physiology. So here we have 2 issues for which we are concerned. The alternative is obvious, which is to remove plastic use from your life by refusing to purchase dangerous products produced in plastic containers. Teach your children to stay away from soda and sugary drinks, including products that seem natural but contain high levels of sugar produced in plastic containers. This includes fresh juices prepared for consumption. Read labels carefully, it goes on to say. There is some ongoing controversy over whether artificial sweetener usage poses health risks. A study done in 2005 by the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio showed that rather than promoting weight loss, the use of diet drinks was a marker for increasing weight gain and obesity. Those who consumed diet soda were likelier to gain weight than those who consumed naturally sweetened soda. Animal studies have convincingly proven that artificial sweeteners cause body weight gain. A sweet taste induces an insulin response, which causes blood sugar to be stored in tissues. Still, because blood sugar does not increase with artificial sweeteners, there is a hypoglycemic effect causing increased food intake. So, in the experiment, after a while, rats given artificial sweeteners steadily increased their caloric intake, body weight, and adipose tissue. A further study by the journal Circulation found a link between artificial and sugar-sweetened beverages and atrial fibrillation, or AFib, a well-known problem in cardiovascular circles. AFib is an abnormal heartbeat caused by the heart chambers beating out of sync with the lower chambers. Let's take a deeper look at this data. Artificial sweeteners cause DNA damage and interfere with healthy gut flora. These artificial sweeteners trick the body into storing excess fat, increases sugar cravings and obesity. We know obesity can lead to type 2 diabetes, not so different from pure sugar-sweetened beverages. This data was published in the American Heart Association journal Circulation, which mentions arrhythmia and electrophysiology. AFib usually goes away on its own, but why perpetuate it with these products? AFib can lead to symptoms of lightheadedness, dizziness, and fatigue. For more information, go to Sweetened Beverages, Genetic Susceptibility and Incident Atrial Fibrillation, a prospective cohort study. Interestingly, pure fruit juices were also included in the category with artificial sweeteners. High concentrated sugar levels in natural juices create the same systemic effect on insulin surges, because the fiber content in natural juices has been removed, which slows the elevated insulin response. It's best not to drink fruit juices, but to eat the fruit outright. The fiber in the fruit itself slows insulin surges. Let's look at some of these sugar substitutes so we can avoid them. Sweeteners to avoid: aspartame, saccharin, sucralose, acesulfame K, neotame, to name a few. So what is the safest replacement sweetener? Answer: the stevia plant. Stevia rebaudioside, the NIH National Library of Medicine says that stevia is derived from Stevia rebaudiana, a South American plant, and it has been used for centuries to sweeten beverages and make tea in the plant's native Paraguay. Rebaudioside A is one compound within the stevia plant that provides sweetness. The steviol glycosides meet purity criteria established by the JECFA. WHO. The clinical studies show that they do not affect either blood pressure or blood glucose response, indicating stevia sweeteners are safe for use by individuals with diabetes. Recent studies, including human studies on intake, metabolism, and toxicity, support the safety of stevia sweeteners. Based on the published research, independent scientific experts in both the US and globally have concluded that stevia sweeteners are safe for people of all ages, and an acceptable daily intake, ADI, of 4 milligrams per kilogram body weight, expressed as steviol, has been established. Stevia has a very low acute toxicity, and no allergic reactions to it seem to exist. Be aware that products containing stevia have additives. Thus, Truvia packets are mostly erythritol, Puravia is mostly dextrose and cellulose powder, and Sweetleaf is mostly inulin, which one should avoid. With the knowledge we now have, the choice is simple. This means not patronizing large corporate interests, especially beverage companies that mainly produce plastic bottles and carcinogens or use artificial sweeteners in their products. Make sure that the U plastic your product comes in has the proper number to ensure complete recyclability. Purchase products in glass if possible. Do not patronize any product or company that utilizes plastic material, especially plastic bottles, and bottled products made of soft plastic. Not using these products will reduce plastic pollution and safeguard one's health. The best option is to consume Hydrex formula in a single-serving packet, which can provide nutritional support for every activity and the opportunity to eliminate plastic bottle use completely. Use a reusable container, of which there are many, to mix Hydrex. Cork cycle containers, of which I have no affiliation although pricey, are a perfect substitute for plastic containers or any lead-free glass container, of which there are many. Do you want to change the world? Here's your chance. Start at home. Educate your children. That is where the most effective habits are formed and great changes are made. You have the answer. Now you have the knowledge to choose and make a difference now. So what are you going to do?